The Lord will lead you on a journey that you never imagined if you follow Him. They began in early 2017 as young kids, not knowing where their name would take them. But they knew they wanted to play music, so they set out to do just that. Cutter and Cash Singleton, ages 17 and 14, along with their group, Cutter and Cash in the Kentucky Grass, has traveled coast to coast, playing over 400 shows, traveling over 200,000 miles, and recently made their debut on the Grand Ole Opry. This is their story. This is today's Nashville. This is faith. Cutter and Cash in the Kentucky Grass. I am so excited that you're here with today's Nashville. Welcome.
Well, thank you for having us. We're glad to be here.
You guys have been all over the place.
Well, a little bit here and there.
Okay, Cutter, Cash, Brennan.
That's right.
That's right. That's it.
You know, when I started watching you all, I was so surprised at your age. 17?
That's it.
14?
There you go.
Brennan, you're the oldest one.
Don't worry about me.
But it's amazing. You are, I have to say, you're my youngest guest I've ever had
Is
on
that
my
right?
show.
Well,
So
we're
there
honored.
you
Happy
go.
to do it. We're
very
honored.
Don't let her down.
we got to keep everything up here.
But I'm so excited. So you guys are awfully young, but we're going to go back a little bit. I want to know how you even started this. Love your look.
Well, thank
Well,
you.
thank
you
you.
very much. It really kind of started, I was 4 years old, and I was riding in the back seat of Mom and Dad's car, and we were driving around. Actually, we're from Western Kentucky, and so we were actually driving around in the elk and bison range at the land between the lakes over there. And they have, you can pay and you can go through and see these elk and bison. I just thought that was the greatest thing, you know. And so I guess Cash would have been, he'd have been one.
I
So
was
he
a
would have
little
been with us,
bitty.
but of course,
I didn't remember.
no. So I heard on the radio, we'd tuned into a local radio station, and they'd play the Ballad of Jed Clampett, the old Flat and Scruggs standard that was used on those television programs, Beverly Hillbillies. And I heard that, and I said, Mom, what is that? What is that? And she said, well, that's bluegrass. I said, well, I said, what is that instrument? You know, I knew enough about it to know what an instrument is, you know, a guitar, but I'd never really heard of a banjo.
4 years old.
4 years old. And she said, well, that's a banjo. I said, well, I want a banjo for Christmas. And so Christmas time come around, I had turned 5 in September, and so that was just a little bit before then. So I had turned 5, and New Year's Day of that year, I took my first banjo lesson. That had been 2012.
Well, what was it like to open that banjo at Christmas morning?
Well, I was really upset. I was very upset because I didn't see the banjo at first. And I opened everything, and there was no banjo. And my mom and dad said, well, look behind the tree. And I turned around there, and that banjo was sitting there wrapped up in a case. So you could tell what it was, and it just tickled me to death. I will never forget seeing that. 5 years old, that right there was what sparked it all. So I started playing the banjo, and started taking lessons from a fellow named Jack Martin out of Paducah, Kentucky. And Jack played the bass for Bill Monroe and played the dobro for Lester Flatt for several years. So I'm a well-accomplished bluegrass musician as far as that's concerned. And I played for Lester all over the country on the Opry and just all kinds of things. So I learned a whole lot about the music, you know, as far as that's concerned, but I learned to appreciate the history of it and those stories.
How old were you at this time?
I took that first lesson right there on New Year's Day. And so that was 5 years old, and I took lessons from him for about 4 years. And he said, well, that's about all I can teach you as far as the banjo is concerned. He said, won't you let me come on with you and play banjo for my group? And so I played there with him locally, and that was great. And I got a lot of experience as far as showmanship and how to handle a stage. Cash, I guess I sparked an interest in him.
That's right.
And
Maybe
how
a
old
little
were you?
competition involved there.
How old were you then?
Whenever I started, I was 4 or 5. And I played it throughout 2019, I guess. And then I swapped over to mandolin. I don't have it as interesting a
what
story.
instrument did you start when you were young?
Guitar.
Guitar.
So it's banjo and guitar, very
Okay.
similar to the
Flat
Flat
and
and Scruggs
Scruggs.
style show, which is kind of what we had styled it after. You know, had the hats like we're wearing and the old colonel ties, you know, as they call them, and that's kind of what we had styled it after. Which we still draw a lot of inspiration from Flat and Scruggs, and then a lot of the heroes of bluegrass, I guess around that time we did a swap, because we wanted to start singing together. We found out that we could sing together. And so I started taking the lead, and Cash had that high tenor voice. And it didn't work to have a banjo and a guitar as well. And so I started playing the guitar, and Cash learned how to play the mandolin, and that really worked. And it's what we're kind of doing today.
That's what we're doing today.
So is it just the two of you and your family, or do you have other siblings?
It's just the two of us.
Okay.
It's the two of us.
And Brennan, tell me how you got involved.
Well, I'd been picking around for a while before we started playing, but nothing serious. And the boy's grandfather invited me down one night. He knew that I played the bass. And I went down to their house, and Cutter was there, and we had a jam session, and it just kind of rolled out.
Now, how old were you all during this?
They would have been, what would you have been, about 10?
I was 6 or 7.
9 or 10, and he would have been,
Little bitty.
So we did our first show together not long after that. And Brennan's been with us ever since.
Yeah,
Brennan now
7 years.
lives right across the road from us, literally across the road from us. So that makes for great rehearsal and easy traveling, just run right across the road, pick up Brennan, and let's go.
out we go.
So you all are so young. So is this something that you knew right away at a young age, that this is the career path I want to go on, or was there anything else? I mean, you just graduated from high school, correct?
And
you're in
Freshman.
freshman.
I'll be a sophomore this year.
So you're just starting high school.
Yes, ma'am.
I knew just as soon as I picked up a banjo and I played my first show, I'll never forget that feeling. They said, don't be nervous or anything. You don't want to do that. And they said, it'll all be all right. And I never really had any sort of nerves about it. I knew I wanted to do that. That was so exciting for me to be able to perform in front of people. And I'll never forget, I played my first show at the Kentucky Opry in Draftonville, Kentucky, which we're frequent guests there every now and then, a couple of times a year, something like that. And so I remember standing on that stage, and there was a feeling, I don't know, it's hard to explain. And it was a rush, I guess, of adrenaline. And I will never forget that I thought, this right here is what I want to do. And I'm going to make sure that it happens. I'm going to try everything I can and make sure to keep my faith in the Lord. And that's we're so blessed. We really have been.
We're going to talk about your faith in a minute, but I love your style. I love your look.
Thank you.
Who inspires you?
There's lots of people that inspire us, and I think that's important. I try to take something away from everybody that I'm around, whether it's good or bad. You can learn something from them, and what to do or what not to do. So I try to draw a little bit of inspiration from everybody that I am around. I think that's important. I really do.
What about you, Cash?
I'm about the same way. We draw a lot of inspiration from everybody, from Flat to Scruggs to even Porter Wagner with the rhinestones.
That's, his name came up when I started looking at your style, and I thought, boy, they're bringing back the Porter Wagner.
We're big Porter fans. We love Porter.
But there's been so many bluegrass heroes that they've paved the way to allow new generations to do what we're able to do today. So we have to pay them some respect, and I want to make sure we do that.
When we come back, we're going to talk about Jeannie Seeley. We're going to talk about your faith. We're going to listen to you and your songs. And
Let's do it.
Okay, we'll be right back.